G'day everyone, from here in Melbourne, Australia. A beautiful spring day today. It's gorgeous outside, around 20 degrees. It's finally starting to warm up. Can't wait to do some more shooting. I might try and get out this week and do another floral shoot if I can. I'd love to get out there while the flowers are still actually in bloom. I did put a video up yesterday showing some images I'd shot for my A9. So if you haven't looked at that yet, you can go back and have a look at that. It's the previous video. I am going to show some others from that shoot in the coming days as well. But what I wanted to talk to you today is about this article that I read actually from Sony Alpha Room, is talking about Nikon saying a certain thing about Sony and Olympus and Fuji cameras. Now, I don't know how true it is, but I'm going to have a discussion with you today, and I'd like to also see what your opinions are on this as well. Because I'm not sure whether it's all been taken out of context or what, but I thought we'd have a discussion about it anyway. Because I think as a Sony shooter, and also a Panasonic shooter now, I've got the GH5 as well. I'd just like to sort of talk to you about it from my aspect and how I like to use them, and discuss what Nikon have sort of said, or whether this translation has been done wrong because they use Google Translate to actually translate over. But I just wanted to talk to you about this generally, so we can have a discussion about that as well. And I just want to say hi to a few people that have come in. We've got David here, Sniper V's here. Peter's here, Ryan's here as well, Rai, Jadeep's here, we've got Stacks actually popping in, Peter, so we've got Stacks that are actually saying hi. So leave some questions, guys, if you can, in the live chat, and I'll get back to that at the end. We can look at a few of these questions a little bit later, and also you can talk about what I'm discussing today as well. Let me know what your thoughts are about this whole rigmarole that sort of is going on about Nikon saying what they're saying. So I'm going to go over to the actual document because I want to talk to you about this document that came out yesterday. And what they've actually said here was, this is a person that I think he's just according to what I read somewhere, he's not actually working for Nikon, but Nikon use him for some of their marketing or something like that. I was just reading, someone said, Tom Hogan, I think, said down below in the question, thing, that he's just he was actually in Nikon imaging during the D3 and D4 generations of products, but he's now retired. It says he's directly responsible for many key decisions on a number of Nikon products during those generations, particularly the D3 and the DF. He still serves as a special advisor to the Nikon imaging business. So he's actually an advisor for the Nikon imaging business. But that's not the point that I actually want to talk about here. I just want to talk about this general belief of these so-called evangelists, or whatever you want to say about them. I mean, this is almost like IBM in their culture and thinking. Now, there's a couple of issues that they're talking about this week alone. Nikon just should be concentrating on their D850, which is an incredible camera. Now, why they are just not concentrating on that side of it, about this camera being so amazing, instead of worrying about what the opposition is doing, is beyond me, because really that camera is an excellent camera and they don't need to really worry about what the opposition are doing. Now, clearly Nikon are also saying that they're going to release a mirrorless camera, so it's a bit of a weird statement for them to come up with. But just over the last week alone, we've had this where they basically released their D850, and all they had in there was something like 35 males promoting this Nikon D850 camera. And there's an article down here where it says, this is obviously a female, has said here, the name's been blanked out. When does a female version of the D850 come out? Will it be in pink? So they've really segmented a whole section of their market by showing all of these males that are so-called photographers without having one female photographer in their list. Now, admittedly, this is Japanese, and their culture, I can understand why this has happened, because in their culture it is very male-dominated in, say, these corporate divisions. But it was a very stupid marketing move to completely cut out the female sector on this camera release. They should have had at least a few females, because clearly there is a lot of females that use Nikon. Now, I can't understand why they left that out. So this is the first section where they've shot themselves in the foot, was by segmenting the whole part of that camera market by not including a female. And again, they've got this corporate culture, and this is why I'm saying it's almost like IBM. Look what happened to IBM. And this could happen to someone like Nikon or Canon if they're not careful about how they market themselves and they don't basically progress enough or innovate enough. So they're clearly looking at this article that's come out where they're saying that nearly no professional people use Sony or Olympus or Fuji is ridiculous. And I'm not sure whether that this has just come out by the Google Translate. So I'd like to know if other people have looked this up or seen a better translation of what's actually come up. But I just wanted to talk to you about it from my aspect. I'm not worried particularly for myself because I know I've got a successful business. I don't have to worry about anything from that aspect about what I'm shooting or anything else. But for someone new that's actually coming up, this really could affect their decisions on which way they want to go. And I think that's probably why this type of document keeps coming out. Because clearly Nikon and Canon are very worried about what Sony, Panasonic, Olympus and Fuji are actually doing. They're really scared basically of the innovation and what new photographers may come out and actually decide to go mirrorless rather than going around the digital SLR route. And to be honest, if I was starting, remember I came from Nikon, so I actually shot, everything I had was Nikon. I sold $35,000 worth of gear when I went to Sony. But the issue is that for me personally, I wanted something that could give me amazing video and amazing stills at the same time. And Sony at the time were the only company that were offering a full frame version of a mirrorless camera, so I went to Sony. I really would have had no issue going to Fuji or some of these other players as well who make amazing cameras. See, what I'm trying to say to people, especially starting up is, and we're probably going to get Nikon and Canon people coming into this discussion later on and slamming Sony because that's what they do. The only thing they can do is start to criticize the mirrorless cameras by saying no professionals use Sony mirrorless cameras, which is complete rubbish. Now, I'm just going to bring up one photographer alone, Bill Gekas. Now, I'm not sure whether you actually have ever followed Bill Gekas, but Bill Gekas is an amazing local photographer here in Melbourne, and his work is absolutely outstanding. If you look at what he's produced, now he's a Fuji shooter, so I'm not just promoting Sony here. I'm just talking about what he is shooting as being Fuji. He is now a Fuji shooter. Now, I'm not sure, some of these images may not be Fuji because he used to probably shoot something else, but he has now moved over to Fuji and he's basically shooting Fuji now full time. So you can't tell me, Nikon or whoever you are from digital SLR cameras, that no professionals are using mirrorless cameras. That is complete rubbish. Now, if you look online, you will find hundreds of these photographers that are using Sony cameras. There's not just one or two of them. I've just pulled up Bill Gekas. But clearly, what a load of rubbish. I can do anything, or even I can do more on my Sony camera, say for instance an A9, than what I could do on any digital SLR camera at the moment. So you can't tell me that you can't use Sony or Fuji for professional work, and that's what these people are trying to say. Clearly, they are scared stiff of where this industry is going. They can't keep up at the moment, and they know they're having trouble trying to get into that market segment. Remember, at the moment, mirrorless is growing. Digital SLRs are actually losing sales. So clearly they're trying to hold on to something. And this is what I'm worried about new people coming into the industry, reading an article like that and thinking, oh my God, I can't go down the mirrorless avenue. Whereas really, if they do go into digital SLRs, I think that they're actually buying older technology and they're going to be holding themselves back. And that's one of the issues I wanted to talk about in this scenario. So, like I said, I'm not sure how accurate this translation has been, but clearly in 1 week alone, Nikon have just shot themselves in the foot with this having all males in this industry. Again, like I said, they've got this IBM mentality, this corporate structure where it's so old in their thinking. What are they thinking? And what was their marketing department thinking about when they did this to completely take out the whole female sector of that industry when there's so many female photographers out there? It's just crazy. So I'm not going to talk for too long on this, but I just wanted to basically bring up your thoughts on this as well. Let me come up. I just want to see what some of you are saying in the chat about this too, because I'm just curious to know. So let's go back. We've got a lot of people just saying hi, obviously. What else have we got? Someone said Coke Zero consumer here as well. Yep, I'm love the old Coke Zero. What else have we got? Hi Michael, how are you? I'm just curious to see if anyone has said anything. David said, I've run into this mentality from time to time, but it's pretty rare. And the thing is too, it does seem to be a little bit rarer than what it used to be, David. I agree with you now, but there's still that old thinking about new technology. And this is the problem. Remember when film came out, digital cameras first came out, and everyone said digital's never going to take off. Bill Gates apparently originally said the iPhone would never take off. This is the mentality of some of these people that hate change. Remember, what I'm trying to say here too is that you have to go along with change. If you don't, you are left behind. And this is why I'm saying to young people that are starting up in this industry that you're far better off, I believe, to go mirrorless, because that's the future. No matter what these people that are shooting digital SLRs at the moment are saying, mirrorless is the future. And that's what you have to think about. And clearly these old corporations like Nikon and Canon are trying to hold off for as long as possible because they're worried about people switching over. But you know, and this is the thing, and this is where I always laugh when you get digital SLR people, Nikon shooters or whatever, or Canon shooters, slamming Sony, saying, oh, there's no glass, there's this and that. They're always going on about these things that just aren't true. And you know, it's just ridiculous. So I just wanted to have a chat about this to see how we're going. What else? Vic, this will be a great marketing strategy after we're all talking about it. What else have we said here? Marketing, because people are talking about it and it doesn't mean it's good. For example, we are all talking about it in a negative light. What else have we got? Do wildlife photographers use mirrorless? Seems like they all use digital SLRs. Yes, well, they may at this stage, but that's going to change. Clearly, even Nikon have seen this now because they're developing a full-frame mirrorless camera. They're just biding time. I guarantee you, Nikon are just biding time because they will shift to mirrorless the second that they can, because they have to. Clearly, this is the only part of the market that's growing. And when you're saying, do wildlife photographers use mirrorless? Well, I can tell you what, I could use the A7R II to capture anything that any other wildlife photographer could capture. Even the A9 would be a brilliant wildlife photographer. You put the 100 to 400 lens on the A9 and I could capture anything in wildlife that anyone else could. And you will obviously find that that will change too as Sony start to release more glass. What else have we got here? Michael said they can't keep up. I can't keep up with Sony either. Laugh out loud because they're releasing so many cameras. This whole Canicon are the only players in the game is completely stupid. Definitely Canon and Nikon are the most popular because of their long history in the business. And that's right, they are at the moment, but that's changing. Clearly it is going to change. And either way, if they don't release mirrorless cameras, they are going to be in serious trouble. And that's the thing with it. I think they're just trying to hold on to this technology for as long as they can. And I just hope they don't go down the IBM path, because we need that competition. And I've said that all along. It's great. The more manufacturers innovate, the more things they bring out, the better it is for everyone. But at the moment, it always seems to be that all the digital SLR people are just trying to slam mirrorless. And a lot of that is out of fear or ignorance. And that's the thing that, you know, I'm trying to sort of say to people here. What else have we got? Elliot said they didn't say Sony Fuji is not suitable for professional work. They say there are very few professionals won't shoot Canon and Nikon. And the thing is, Elliot, that's not true. There's a lot more than you actually think of professionals using now Sony mirrorless and Fuji mirrorless. If you Google them and actually research, go onto Flickr or these other pages and see how many people are actually using Sony mirrorless cameras or Fuji mirrorless cameras, and even Panasonic, things like that. There's a lot more than you actually believe are out there. So people need to research a little bit more to say there's not that many. There are lots. Patrick said, can't watch this, painful, unsubscribed. Well, that's no worries, Patrick. If that's the way you feel, we don't want you here. Sniper V said the amount of ground and technology that has been covered by Sony, Fuji and Olympus in the mirrorless work in the past 5 years has been incredible. So I said, don't cry, Patrick. The thing is, this is the thing immediately. See, the second you start talking about this, I've had someone say that they unsubscribed. Well, this is how ridiculous this whole thing is. I'm not saying that Nikon is bad, and I'm not saying Canon's bad. There's room for everyone, and this is what I'm saying here, that there's no reason for digital SLR people to start slamming Fuji or Sony or someone like that, because there's enough room in this industry for everyone. And that's what people have to understand here, that the more companies innovate, the better off we will all be. And then to see a thing where someone's saying there's not many professionals using Sony or Fuji is just a ridiculous statement. And that's what I'd love to see your comments on it as well. And please, like I said, comment down below, guys, because if you are using digital SLRs, I'd love to know what you feel about this as well, because I came from a digital SLR background, so I completely understand what it's like to work in that area. I had D4S and I had a D810, so I was using all of that gear. Michael said, bye-bye, Patrick, have a good day. I know, this is just crazy. Like, these so-called fanboys, it is ridiculous. Remember, guys, it's not the gear. It's actually the person behind that camera. But for some reason, we get so many people think that you can't be a professional if you're using mirrorless cameras. And it's a joke. And this is what I'm trying to say to people, that new photographers out there. If you are seriously thinking that you can't shoot professional work on any camera that's out there nowadays, you're kidding yourself. You can shoot professional work on an iPhone. It's crazy. The thing is, it's the person behind that gear that matters. But to say that you can't shoot, there's not many professional shooters shooting Sony and Fuji is ridiculous. What else have we got? Jadeep said, I used A6500 for the first time yesterday, shot the Milky Way in HBR and loved it. A rookie took great pictures. A6500 is a great camera. And if the thing too, like with Patrick there saying bye-bye, I originally stated at the beginning that Nikon should have concentrated on how good that D850 is. And I said it's an amazing camera. But the problem is some people are so blindsided with blinkers on their face that they can't see that I'm not just bagging digital SLRs, I'm actually saying that that D850 was a great camera. They can't take the fact that you can criticize someone else and say what they were saying here in that document was not true. It's just crazy how some people think. And we've got here, David said, I think it's the stupidity of the old guard. The complaint about Sony is they don't have glass yet within the last 4 years. Sony's bad. Put out more glass than Canon and Nikon. And remember, I've talked about that before. To say that there's no glass, what glass do people actually want? Yes, sports glass, clearly we are missing at the moment on the Sony lineup. But that will change. I guarantee within the next 12 months, Sony will probably release enough glass that people will have to stop whinging about that. But then I guarantee they'll then start whinging about something else. I can shoot a wedding no problem with Sony. I have a 70-200. I have an 85. I have a 24-70mm lens. I have a 35 1.4. That to me is the holy grail of shooting lenses for me. I don't need any more than that. So when people say there's not enough lenses out there, what do they actually need? What lenses more than what Sony have now at the moment do you actually need? And this is why I always laugh when people say there's no lenses out there. Victor said, Kypro said, I'm using a digital SLR. I started doing photography around a year ago, initially for videography. I'm enjoying an 80D at the moment. I'm just investing in lenses. And that's great, Pyro. And like I said, there's no problem with using a digital SLR. And this is why I'm saying to people, we shouldn't be so related to gear all the time. And this is what does my head in sometimes about a statement like that. It'd be like me, Sony coming out saying that there's not many professionals or whatever using Nikon. There's no reason to make that statement. Just get on and start producing good gear and produce cameras that will actually sell themselves. And like I said, Nikon have done that with the D850. It's actually an amazing camera. So there's nothing wrong with still shooting digital SLRs. But I'm just saying, as a statement to say no professionals are using Olympus and Fuji and Sony is just a stupid statement. Victor said cameras are just a tool, not that hard to understand. And I agree, Victor, totally. And they are totally just a tool. And like I said, I'm totally with people unsubscribing if they don't feel the same way as me. For me, it's all about actually getting behind the camera and shooting. Really, to be honest, the gear doesn't matter that much. It's about your skills as a photographer. And, you know, and if it's like Patrick, goodbye. BB said, I think you should take Rogaine for your receding hairline. Thanks. I think it's gone too far, Victor. Or BB, I should say. Richard said, hi, David. There is a professional photographer named Manny Labrovi in the Philippines uses Sony. There's millions of professional photographers. I'm shooting full-time. I'm not saying my work's the best, but I'm shooting professional. I earn over $100,000 a year, well over that, and I'm shooting Sony. And there's heaps and heaps of people that are using Sony like what I'm shooting. It's ridiculous. What else have we got? Nikon image quality is a hair better than Sony, but it's true that not for long. Sony will correct their color science and it's game over. I shoot Nikon plus Sony. I'm not sure about that, Elliot. I think they're probably about line ball. If you're talking about the D810 or the D850, it's a fraction better than the A7R II if you're dealing with 64 ISO. But then the second it goes above that, they're saying that the A7 R2 is actually a fraction better. But remember, that camera's 2 years old. So the second Sony release, say, a new A7R3 or an A3, I think that'll change. But they're very, very close. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference when I went from Sony to... from Nikon to Sony. I found the image quality was almost exactly the same. They are very, very close. And again, like I said, it's not about that anymore. It's any camera out there at the moment is good enough to shoot professional work on. I mean, all of them are. You can do that with Olympus, you can do that with the Fuji, you can do it with the Sony, the Nikon, the Canon. They're all capable of producing amazing results, more than what probably anyone could have done, well, way more than what anyone could have done 5 years ago. What else have we got here? Victor said they only hear what they want to hear, not what's being said. Oh, well, one less to worry about. I think he's talking about Patrick. Studio 96 said, I'm a dual shooter Nikon for Sony, for studio, Sony for outdoor. Capo said, I bought a trail camera about a week ago. It's so cool. Good footage for possum, skunk. I haven't seen that trail one before. Capo also said, for Sony, for sport with Sony, couldn't you just use a 70-200 then buy an extender? Yeah, but it slows down the actual aperture. I think it becomes a 5.6. That's a problem. Sony need to release 2.8 lenses, and they will. It's only a matter of time before they release 2.8 lenses. Michael said, I don't care what anyone says. If I can pay my bills and my child support off my photography, I'm professional. And you are. That's the thing. As long as you're earning money from this, you are professional. And this is what a lot of people don't actually see. The problem is you have people that are terrified about the way the industry's going. And we have a thing, like I said here, which is Ford and Holden fight against each other in the cars. And you're only ever one or the other. And each other hates one another. And it's really silly. Like I said, there was no reason to say that statement if that's what they actually said. But I'm not convinced that Nikon did actually say that. It might have just been in the translation. But I just wanted to have a discussion with you about this. Jim said, hello, David. Hello, Susie. Susie's in the background. I don't care what else have we got here. What was it? Oh, I can see, I can see why you do not return my hug. Capo said, unhugging can't deal with the truth. David Johnson said, David, you need to drop Patrick on his head like you did Susie. Jim said, hello all. Jim P said, professional. Well, I just had my first paid photo shoots, 2 of them both paid. And great work, mate. I mean, like I said, I'm just more worried about what young people think about this. You know, that when they read these articles and see these articles, it may swing them to go one way or another. And like I said, there's no reason why this still has to be said anymore. They're just ridiculous comments that people have to make. And if you're talking about, and this is a thing I always say to people, if I shot an image with a D850 and I shot an image with a with the A7R2 and I put them up, I guarantee 99.9% of the average population out there wouldn't be able to tell one was with a mirrorless camera or one was done with a digital SLR. And this is what people don't understand. It's this really old thinking all the time about you can't move on and you can't advance. And a lot of people, for some reason, don't like to move forward and try new things. And that's what you've got to be very careful of, is not trying new things. clearly Nikon have already said they're going to make a full-frame mirrorless camera. So if they think no one's using full-frame mirrorless cameras, why are they developing a full-frame mirrorless camera in the first place? And I guarantee Canon are probably going to do this as well. So you're going to find that a lot of them will shift over eventually. Whether they end up making a hybrid one between a digital SLR and a mirrorless, I'm not sure. These are the things that people have to understand. It's not really about the gear, guys. It's more about the person behind that camera. But for some reason, there's so many people set in their ways that all they want to do is bag the opposition and say no professionals are using that camera, and it is absolutely ridiculous. It's just nuts. And like I said, if you don't believe what I'm saying, please unsubscribe because, like I said, I don't get anything. I'm not sponsored by anyone. You unsubscribing from my channel makes no difference, but I know the people that are already following me believe in what I say, and I love that aspect of it. It's more to me about the actual shooting is the thing that matters to me, not what gear you're actually using. Nissa said, would you agree that Canon and Nikon lenses are a bit overrated? Well, I don't think they're overrated, but I mean, the thing is, I'm just a bit sick of this statement saying that Sony just don't have lenses because it's just crazy. I mean, how can they say that about Fuji, for instance? Because if you're dealing with Fuji's lenses are incredible. I have nothing but admiration for Fuji stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. The only reason why I never went down the Fuji path was because they never had a full frame camera. And that for me was an issue for what I was shooting. I was used to that full frame look. I was used to the low light performance of what's the full frame gave me. Oh, thank you so much. Michael's just donated to Susie. So I would have gone to Fuji in a heartbeat if they had a full frame sensor. But at the time when I went from Nikon to Sony, that was the reason why I went to Sony, because they had the full frame. But Fuji have incredible lenses and they have a really big range of lenses. But you've got to remember that Sony have only been in this for a very short period of time. And over the coming months or years, Sony will get more and more. What Sony have produced at the moment for the amount of lenses, for the lenses they've got, for the amount of time they've had, is actually incredible. And that's what people don't understand. I think the thing is that they used to whinge about everything else like focus, and now the A9's out and they can't whinge about focus anymore or low light performance of these cameras. They then go on to the lenses. They clearly have to have something to actually bag every single time. And once they release enough lenses for the Sony side of it, I guarantee they'll find something else to whinge about. So it's just the way the industry is, unfortunately. Instead of these photographers getting out there and just shooting, it becomes more about the gear. And I guarantee that the real photographers out there aren't interested in all of this stuff. The real photographers out there are just basically shooting. They don't care about what they're using. They just want to use something that works for them. And it doesn't matter whether it's Nikon, Sony or Fuji. But I just want to sort of talk about it from my perspective, and the fact that young people can be swayed by this type of stuff, and they shouldn't be. They should be looking at what works for them rather than whether it's just a digital SLR or whether it's a mirrorless camera. No worries, mate. Thanks for watching, CoPro. Jim said Susie can go shopping now. Perhaps you can buy a new hat, Michael. So what I'd love you to do is comment down below, because I'd love to know your opinions about this as well. Because I love an open discussion about this, so I'd love you to actually let me know what you think about what Nikon have said here. And like I said, I'm not sure whether it's actually Nikon that said this. It could just be the fact that the way this has been translated. But I'd love to have a discussion on this, and let me know what you're thinking about this is. And let me know if you are shooting a digital SLR, whether you are interested in moving over, say if Nikon did bring out a mirrorless camera, whether you think you would go that way or whether you'd want to stick with your digital SLRs, or if you're from Canon, let me know about what you think about where Canon are going at the moment and whether you're thinking about switching to mirrorless. Because I'd love to know what you actually think about this, because I'd be really curious to actually know how you feel. So basically, it's just a quick discussion on that. And that's about it for today. Is there any last questions before we actually go, Guy? Because I'm going to go and have lunch, I think. But I'd love to know what you feel about this. I'll see if anyone else comes up with any other questions. I'd just be curious to know. If not, like I said, you can leave those down below. Now, we'll have in the coming days more of the shoot that I did the other day, because I want to show you some more images from that shoot, the spring shoot that I just did. And I'll have some other, make sure on Thursday US time and UK time, I'll have the Sony live news and rumours. Jadeep said A6 500 plus 16 to 70. I hicked up for 3 hours and came back alive. Size and quality makes a big difference. And that was the main reason why I switched, because it was hurting my back. I was carrying around big digital SLRs like the D4S and the D810 and the large lenses. And to be honest, I did have really sore backs at the end of the day, and it was starting to hurt me. As I got older, it was actually taking me a day to recover after a wedding. Whereas now I don't have that issue anymore. It made a massive difference for me lugging around these lighter cameras. What else have we got? Hasselblad even has a mirrorless camera, and that's true, Vic. They have. Carl said Nikon executives are aging bean counters that live in a bubble, and that's the problem. And the thing is, guys, I don't want Nikon to disappear. That's the thing that you've got to understand if you're coming from the Nikon side or the Canon side. There's no way I want them to disappear. I want them to be successful so that they also make Sony, Fuji, Olympus, Panasonic all innovate. And that's the best thing for the industry. What else have we got down here? Rice said, I agree with everything you have said here. Thank you, David, for your unbiased opinions and dropping some truth on this topic. Thanks, Roy. Chadeep said, there was a Nikon guy with me. He said I made a good choice. Victor said, I agree with you all you've said, David. I shoot both the D810 and the A9. I haven't touched my A9 since. And that's the thing, Vic. Are you saying you haven't touched the A9 or you haven't touched the D810, Victor? The D850, from what I've seen, is a great camera. And if I was still shooting Nikon, I definitely would have gone up to that. And that wouldn't surprise me if that stops a lot of people from switching over. Bon appetit, David. Thank you, mate. That's Jim. Is obviously gone. David, Canon has a mirrorless camera and it's been a failure. That's because they didn't do a good mirrorless version, David. And I agree. I think the problem with Canon is they just don't want people to stop buying their higher-ended gear. And that's a really short way of thinking about things. They really need to change their thinking in Canon and start to give you things in the lower-end models that the bigger cameras give you, like what Sony have done, and things like that give you more of the video options and stuff down like that in the lower quality cameras. They've got to change their thinking. What else? Nisla says, I just believe it's overrated sometimes based on how people used to complain about the quality of Sony lenses in the beginning. However, if you compare their performance of Sony lenses these days, it's even better than most Canon and Nikon lenses. They resolve so much details. Yeah, he's saying the D810, yep. Yeah, I agree. The thing is and people talk about the price of those Sony lenses saying they're expensive, and they're not, because if you look at the original prices of when the Canon lenses came out, they were very similar prices compared to what the Sony lenses are that are just being released now. The other thing too is that what you've got to understand is those Sony lenses have been actually, I think they're made to resolve 100 megapixel files. So this is the issue with those Sony lenses. They're actually future-proofing their lenses in the fact that they will resolve as these bigger sensors come out. At the moment, some of the other lenses that are out there, if you look at them, the actual sensors are out-resolving the lenses. So that's another issue as well. Whereas the new G-Master lenses particularly, I think actually will resolve up to about 100 megapixels. So they have future-proofed those lenses. So yes, they may be a bit more expensive, but you are paying for something that is a bit more future-proofed. So that's another issue. But they're not expensive when you look at the original prices of when the Nikon or the Canon lenses were released. They're very comparable, and that's what you have to consider when you're talking about that aspect of it. Well, that's about it, guys. So I think we might leave it there. Like I said, look forward to the next video that will be probably coming up tomorrow. I'll do another video tomorrow, and I'll have the live show on Thursday for you guys. I'll just ask these next couple of ones. What do you think the real reason Canon and Nikon have made a full-frame mirrorless camera? Let me just see. Have made a full-frame mirrorless camera. Even if they think the market is small, it's still a market. And that's true. I think that, like I said, I think at the moment, they're holding out as long as they can, but they do realise that the future is definitely going to be that way. So eventually you will find even Canon are going to have to switch over sooner or later. They're going to have to bring out a full-frame mirrorless camera. It's only a matter of time. But they just don't want to sort of announce that at this stage. Nikon have obviously announced that they're going to do it. Hopefully, I suppose they're probably hoping that people won't switch. that could be the thing as well. Nisla also said he loves his 90mm macro. Great lens. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I only wanted to make this a short one today. Let me know in your comments down below what you think, because I'd love to know, have a discussion about this as well. And obviously, if you can, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you all again for the next video. G'day, guys.